It's Wednesday. Let's chat. I'm Kanan Chandran, the publisher of stormasia.com, and this is our regular series of discussions, a WED WEB chat, and we talk about all sorts of things. Of course, this is part of the OUE series of discussions as part of Jobs 20XX, so we will be talking a bit more about how we can create opportunities for those joining the workforce or just shifting into new positions within the industries. Now we are well into the digital age. Now, what does that mean? Digital age promise a more fulfilled, prosperous, longer and healthier life for everybody. Back when it started in the 70s, it held all those promises. It talked a lot about that. Along came the personal computer, and that made things fantastically easy to get to do things. And since then, technology has just flooded us with mobile devices, cloud computing, and so much more besides. But in all of that, have we also become a bit more disconnected from our human values? As we become best friends with our devices more than each other. We're so dependent on cloud computing. We don't need to meet people. We do things virtually. The pandemic did a lot of damage on that front for us as well. Now, have we also then become more lonely, stressed, and depressed as a result? So, what if all of this is a sign of things to come? What will the digital tomorrow look like? It's got to be a mixed bag of good things and bad things or uncertain things. But we've got a group of panelists who are pretty immersed in this area. We've got Kenny Tay, who is the CEO of the Singapore Digital Chamber of Commerce Foundation, the SGDCC. We've got Benjamin Chong, who is the MD of Next Level SG, Rodney Yap, who's a co-founder of UserTip, and Alan Chong, who's the chairman of the Digital Transformation Chapter of the SGDCC. So let's very quickly try and understand what their roles are. Maybe we'll start with Kenny, if you could just give us a very quick snapshot of your role and what your organization does for the benefit of the audience.
Right. So typically, so I'm Kenny. So I'm the current CEO for Singapore Digital Chamber of Commerce. Primarily, we focus on helping companies to do a digital transformation in this new era. Get them to understand what technology is all about. Not fearful of technology. Looking some at the deep tech, like AI. Some people are asking us about the recent craze about metaverse. So also one of our role is also to help technology-related companies in Singapore to really grow their business, grow their awareness of their services and products, as well, not only just in Singapore, but in the region. So the Chamber has intention to set up rep office around the region in Southeast Asia, starting from Malaysia, as well as Vietnam next year. Right, so in the midst of preparation to do that. So I think generally that's a very simple overview of what we are doing at this point in time.
Okay, that's great. How many members do you have, and what's the rate of growth been?
We ever since I came in, I joined the chamber primarily in December, just before the COVID, and because of the COVID, we remained quite dormant. We were set up on 4 years back. So like about a few months ago, about 3 to 4 months ago, we decided to change the whole ecosystem to be a new age, digital chamber. We don't really want to be a traditional one. So we built an ecosystem, revamped the whole membership flows, and I think till to date, we have about close to 500 members.
Okay, great. We'll get back to that a bit later. Sure. Alan, can we hear from you what your role is as the chairman of the Digital Transformation Chapter?
Basically, you'll chat on this digital transformation regarding to helping to reach out to the SMEs to actually understand about their pain points and also to come out some of the digital transformation plan to help them to transform their business process flow and also what they are in needs in terms of some of the supporting government grants that are in line for them to help them to transform with some of our AI partners, our digital solutions partners that we have, that we can actually see how we can transform their business into a running to a more latest trend of technologies with metaverse, with related kind of implementation of the latest transformation technologies that we have to help them to transform. So basically, this is what my role will be under the transformation chapter.
All right. Okay, great. Thanks. Benjamin, can we just hear a bit about what Next Level SG is about?
Sure. Yeah, we are a digital marketing agency in Singapore. So we handle basically revenue side, right? I think that a lot of times SMEs want to find out how to generate revenue leads online, and that's our specialty, right? So we do it across platforms right now, anything from YouTube all the way Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. All of this is fair game. I think we have a video arm as well, because I think that marketing in the future is about video as much as it is about copywriting, etc. So yeah, we are full suite, kind of marketing agency focusing on digital, transforming the SMEs. We also pre-approved vendor at IMDA side, and that was what Alan is talking about, right? Having this kind of grants available for SMEs. I think that's very helpful by the Singapore government, because I do see a lot of traction in terms of like businesses when they go online, right? They're actually able to generate sales. Yeah.
Okay, great. Rodney.
Yes.
Tell us a bit about UserTip.
Thank you, Kanan. So yeah, I've co-founded UserTip with some of my close friends from university. So for UserTip, we are focused on helping companies unlock the ROI from their tech investments, or the money that they've spent into their investments, right? Because as you've mentioned, digital transformation efforts are pushed out at an increasing rate globally, and especially so in Southeast Asia. But systems and solutions are also getting increasingly complicated, and a lot of users end up struggling to navigate their way in this digital world, be it as a consumer or even as an employee. And as a result, there's a lot of frustration and a lot of business failures. So UserTip here, we help to unlock this ROI by allowing our clients to use our no-code platform to generate digital journeys for our users and guide them as if there's someone like a digital concierge, if you will, on their computer itself to guide them step by step.
So could we, Rodney, just picking up on your last point, you're talking about failures. I mean, I don't want to start off on a failure note, but it just sort of intrigued me. Do people blame the digital element when it comes to failures in business, or do they, are there other reasons that will not deter them from continuing to go digital?
I think everyone has accepted that going digital, or almost everyone has accepted that going digital is an inevitability. But that doesn't mean that there isn't any apprehension or resistance towards adopting software or tech across different firms. So I used to be from a legal background. So professional services traditionally have had one of the slightly slower uptake in terms of technology compared to consumer-facing fronts. I would say that a lot of, and this is not unique to just professional services, but a lot of companies, they have undergone in some way or another their own digital transformation efforts. But sometimes perhaps it was not well planned or well thought out, and they end up the efforts was maybe more along the lines of they just purchased the software and deployed it, but they did not think about the digitization or the digitalization aspect of it. And what happens is because of that, it created more work for the people involved, for the employees, but it didn't yield any results. And as a result, people get more jaded. There's a bit of change fatigue, whereby, if multiple times vendors after vendors keep coming and promising this new technology is going to solve your problem, and then you end up being disappointed. And that's kind of where I see a bit of that failure, which is why I think now companies are getting a lot more savvy when we're talking about digital transformation. They realize that it's not just buying technology and deploying it within their firm. So they realize that it's a multifaceted or multi-factor issue, right? It's the people, it's the process, it's the technology. All three are important.
Okay. So it's largely a user interface issue that you reckon?
I don't think it's just a user interface. So let's talk about just enterprise level software. So like companies that are deploying software. It's not so much on just user interface. It's a lot also about processes. So a lot of people think, oh, UX UI will just solve the problem. But UX UI, what is intuitive to one generation or one group of people may not be intuitive to another group of people. So I don't think it's just an interface issue. It's also about processes and mindsets that needs to come together in order for a successful digital transformation project to take place.
Okay. Kenny, I mean, you have probably a larger perspective of the digital environment in Singapore with SGDCC, right? You've seen many companies, you've talked to them, talked to owners, looked at how they operate. Are we digitally ready as a society to operate in that fashion, or do we still have a long way to go?
Well, if you were to look at the statistics, in Asia primarily, of course, I think leading China is one of the country that has one of the highest percentage of digital adoption, especially in the last 5 years, right, compared to most other countries. I think after speaking to so many companies in the recent years, Singapore still has a gap to go. A lot of companies, especially the SMEs, still has a lot of fear in regards to adopting technology. And I think and most of the time, I feel that technology can be best used in some of the processes, right? Making it more effective. Don't really have to involve so much of human touch compared to using technology in some areas, right? Increase the productivity of it. And the Singapore government has been very wonderful, providing a lot of fundings, grants to support. But I still see a lot of companies are not utilizing, the funding as much as possible towards their advantage, right? I think seeking the right solution, even though the government fund it, it's important. Funding is just a form of subsidize, but seeking the correct solution to solve the correct, the problems that they face is critical, right? So that's also one of the challenges that I think everybody face in today's market. So I also always urge companies, be a bit more open-minded. You don't have to adopt technology right away, but it's always good to know what is being available out there in the market. Yeah, and that's what I think the Chamber is trying to achieve. Yeah.
Okay. You talk about the companies getting government grants. Should this be a company-led drive as opposed to a government incentivized movement? Should companies want to digitize rather than say, oh, great, the government's giving us money, let's go do this. And then they do things that maybe don't make sense because they don't need it or they don't know what to do or how to do it?
Of course, the good thing about IMDA is that they have a pre-approved vendor list, which they will, do their due diligence work to make sure the software or the solution they are providing is sound, right, as much as they can, right? And then there are really some companies which they have to submit that they really have adopted the solution in some form, and they're happy with the solution, right? But of course, again, after looking at all these, solution providers, vendors, I think the most important thing is that you don't apply for a grant just because there's a grant, right? And the grant is not 100% subsidized, right? You probably, I think PSG, if you ask Benjamin now, it's like 70%. Yeah, so if it's 70%, you still have to fork out the 30%, and you don't want to adopt a technology and you spend the extra 30% and eventually not using it, you see? So in that scenario, matching the correct solution to the problem still required some gaps to be filled, right? There wasn't lack of solution, but I think matching the correct one required some commitments. Yeah, so that's what I think.
Okay, Benjamin, coming to you, and you've helped companies in this process. What do you see as the frequent pain points for many of them in terms of one adopting it and one making full use of it?
Yeah, so I think one of the major problems, like Rodney has already mentioned, right, is about them having a mindset to want to explore, right? First of all, want to explore, it has to come from the leadership. I can tell you this is very, very clear. There are many SMEs. I know that the employees want to digitize because it will help them. It will help them increase the productivity by 20%, 30%. It will help them get more sales. You have the marketing team, do more. But a lot of times the leadership is very, very busy with the operations of the business. And understandably, right, we've all run businesses before. I think that the operations of the business is very, very challenging in this time. And so if the leadership is always in the operations, right, and they don't have a roadmap, a kind of digitization kind of plan, or even at the mindset to, okay, yeah, let's explore. And you might not get it right the first time, right? I mean, how many things, you get a perfect system the first time? I mean, you talk about tech, right? They have 1,000 iterations, maybe before they get a right UI, UX. So the mindset is that, can we explore? Can we take time to test? And let's not change the entire organization at once. Let's change one small part first. Right. So if you're working with us, right, typically when we go in, we even sometimes have to train the sales team how to go and call up digital leads, how to respond to them quickly. Because digital leads, when they come in, the lead decay, right, is maybe about 30 minutes. You cannot wait for 1-2 days, right? You have to contact them fast. And so this is the kind of process that we are going through with the SMEs. I think it's a valuable process, right? Everybody has to go through it. Yeah, and I think that is a very valuable kind of like endeavor to go on. But it has to come from the leadership. The leadership have to have that tenacity to be able to say, okay, let's do it. Let's try it again and again until it works and refine better each way.
You talk about leadership, right? You got to get a mixed bag of leadership, right? A mixed bag of leaders, types of leaders. You got the old school, you got the new school, up and coming, hotshot. How do you find a sort of comfortable compromise between all of that when you got the old fellas probably resistant to too much change?
Well, when we deal with, okay, so first of all, there has to be a lot of empathy, especially for people who are so-called already digitized, right? I mean, among this panel here, we are already pretty digitized. We understand digital, we understand technology, but we have to really empathize. If a person is at a certain level and they already have a full plate, right? Every leader has a full plate already. Every business owner has a full plate, especially with COVID, especially with supply chain issues, all of this. We have to understand that it is not that they don't want. It's sometimes they really don't have the mind space. And so for us as especially a solution provider, we need to break things down into bite-sized pieces. And of course, we will never get it perfect, right? But as much as possible, bite-sized pieces and small pieces so that we can give them quick success first. Sometimes when I go into an organization, I say, okay, you don't do the big plan first. You just focus on this one component. I just get right now your website optimization, or let's say your Facebook leads, right? And I just get right first. And once you're able to generate results, well, the leadership are very interested now because you're generating revenue. And every business owner, once you generate revenue, right, their lights all turn on already, and they are very, very alert, right? So sometimes you need to do this. Sometimes you need to do this. Yeah.
Money always talks, right? Alan, do you find that a main reason for people wanting to undergo digital transformation?
That is one of the reasons that they will be more focusing on why they want to do digital transformation. But I will say that they also will need some help in terms of their resources, because they have some resource constraint in terms of internal manpower they have. So I think that if let's say we were going to actually provide that, there's available grants available in the market from the government that HR grants that will available up to 80-90% for 70-90% for their manpower grant. So if we can recommend them to actually help them to hire that particular person to do the digital transformation, focusing on the digital transformation process, implementation on things that they need to do, that will be helpful for them. Because sometimes in their internal manpower, they might not have the skill set or the right person to execute this within the organization.
Okay, so sometimes trying to insert an outsider into an organization causes a lot of issues as well, right? Person doesn't understand the company culture and issues of that nature. What's the level of acceptance?
For the younger enterprise, let's say they are not really on a family business or long period of rigid kind of structure of the business structure. They are more fluid and will be able to implement faster. Those companies that is a long history, and especially they have some structure to follow the command of order in terms of that approving process. It will take more time for them to implement some solution to get approval before they get the budget in order for them to implement. And then it takes more time, like half a year, 1 year, or even 1.5 to 2 years to fully implement the solutions if they want to digital transformation. Let's say, for example, one of the top 10 in Singapore for the accounting and audit firm. I think they are having a hard time to get a grant to customize to what they want, and the grant process and plus all the implementation take around 1.5 years. So it's a 300 employees company in Singapore. So I think implement this within their different division of the organization itself is pretty tough, because every division has different requirement and needs. So we have to tackle every division needs one by one in order to implement for the full company.
So how long is this process usually? I mean, if an organization wants to go into a digitalization program, what's the average amount of time for it to adopt and function smoothly as possible?
Typically, under let's say the Enterprise Singapore, some of the grants, automation or related grants that we have, right? Project will be 3 to 6 months, 6 months maximum that we can execute within the 6 month time. Because anything more than 6 months, unless a special case, then there will be require a lot more justifications that we need to actually justify why we need more manpower to do it. Especially, as I say, they have more manpower, they have more employees, then we can justify. If not, then maybe typical SME size, less than 50 headcounts, I think within the 6 months should be able to implement everything.
And what would the cost be, roughly?
The cost will be ranging from 50 to 100K or so. Yeah, so that one also includes some of the training and to help them to actually adopt to the solutions.
So is this the 30% that they have to fork out, or is this a full cost?
Yeah, there's a 30%. So basically 30% they need to pay, which is 70% funded. 30% will be funded by the company itself. Company has to pay upfront. So for the 30%, if let's say the SMEs is actually have 3 headcounts and above, means to say have 3 CPF staff, then they also can go for the SFTC grant. Okay, basically it can help them to offset up to 10K for the remaining balance of the grant that's not covered.
Okay, great. So, so Kenny, you were talking about expanding, right? Bringing the chamber to other markets as well. What's the benefit in doing that?
Generally, there are a lot of resources pertaining to helping Singapore companies. I'll give you one very classic example. Singapore is a very developed country. Our cost of living, our manpower cost, I think every entrepreneur in Singapore agree that it's primarily higher than most of our neighboring countries, right? And if you're looking at some tech companies, like if you ask Benjamin or Rodney, running a digital solution organization, if your manpower is entirely in Singapore, sometimes it can be quite high, right? Singapore government, I think, is very good. Despite the COVID, they give out a lot of manpower grants, but that's not forever. If in the long run, in some companies, they have to outsource, they have to build a separate teams elsewhere, right? So we are also working with the Vietnam government to do a mission trip to Vietnam, together with a very big US company that also has global presence, especially in Vietnam, to invest in such companies and technology or digital related companies, as well as to set up some of the operations over there, which the IT professionals are quite easily available in the Vietnam market. The cost is, of course, cheaper than Singapore. And then, of course, generally, Singapore can still remain as a HQ. It's just as it's the same as some manufacturing firms. The HQ design, the HQ companies are in Singapore, but the factory might not be in Singapore. The factory might be in Vietnam, right? I think most of the factories are starting to move out from China because the wages are getting higher and higher, right, in the recent years. So these are things that we primarily want to work with the local governments, whether it's in Malaysia, or whether it's in Vietnam or in Thailand or Philippines, right? I think we Singapore companies need to look at as a global presence. And then, of course, at the same time, how do we expand our business beyond the borders, right? Singapore is an extremely small market. I think, I don't know whether we have an active 100,000 companies in Singapore at this point in time, especially after COVID, right? And even though we have 100,000 companies in Singapore active, is this despite it's a small country, it's a small market. And if you were to ask Benjamin, I think there are more than thousands of digital marketing companies in Singapore fighting on the same pie, which is very, very competitive, right? So other than just looking at Singapore, and why don't go across the borders and look at some other countries, which what IE Singapore used to do, which is now called Enterprise Singapore, trying to urge as many organizations to spread their wings, right? Yeah, and that's what primarily we hope to achieve.
Okay, so you talk about trying to bring Singapore expertise out into the regional market, if I'm
Right.
understanding it correctly. Do we have the expertise in-house to start off with? Do we have enough in Singapore expertise to do that? Or do we not need to fulfill our needs here first? Do we have enough people coming on stream?
I think as an organization, I'm not very new to overseas expansion myself, right? I do run and own a few technology companies. And if you ask me, in the process of building my presence in Singapore, why should I not exploring other markets in the region, right? So the world is so big, and we are just talking about Southeast Asia, even talking about a global presence, right? And if you look at just take store Malaysia, so I just came back from a trip from KL, which we have a very close relationship with the Malaysia Digital Chamber of Commerce. Okay, I met out with the same counterparts like IMDA and Enterprise Singapore over there, which they are government agencies, right? And yeah, the Malaysian market is huge, right? It's sustainable, right? And I think as an entrepreneur or as a business owner, we need to plan, right? If you never plan, you will never go there. You never work out. You will never expand, and you always looking at the Singapore market, right? Yeah. So I think that's my thoughts.
Okay. Yeah. Rodney, for you, you've also got this other company, Regal, right, which does legal aspects of it, and you were talking about some before the session started about some of the issues that you had with mixed sort of employees, different generations of employees coming together. Do you see that as something beneficial for companies to have that mix of generational inputs, or is it more efficient for a company to have everybody sort of digitally savvy and ready to go?
I think definitely if everybody is digitally savvy, that's definitely beneficial. But that's not to say we should discount away because the experiences that the existing employees already have. It's more of about how we can translate that old knowledge, that existing knowledge, into new context. So for example, copywriting, let's use marketing as an example, and Benjamin, feel free to chime in because I don't want to make a fool of myself in front of an expert. But let's say copywriting, traditionally we already had advertising and copywriting knowledge even before Instagram, even before TikTok. People's how you build a marketing campaign, how you build a marketing message. These are sciences that people have already studied. It doesn't change that much when you're speaking across to people. It can change, but the platform and the medium itself could change, right? So that's where, bringing that knowledge into TikTok is very different from, same content, but different mediums require different types of different approaches. So I wouldn't say that, of course, if everybody can be digitally savvy, that would be great, but we only have 24 hours in a day, right? And we can only master that many things. So I would feel that that would be how I would approach digital transformation. But also on that note, something I would like to also that I've noticed is that it wouldn't be beneficial for a company if everybody is, how do I put it, hyper excited about technology. Now, I'll give you an example because I feel that especially when you are talking about digital transformation within a company, and I think Alan spoke about this, is you don't want to try to get from step 1 to step 10 immediately at one go, right? You want to adopt technology at a slow pace. Don't try and change the whole company at one go. Change one small part, get a low-hanging fruit, build up the competence, and also build up the confidence of the team first before you start tackling bigger and bigger tech problems. Now, when you get a lot of younger people, the more tech savvy or the more tech excitable ones, there's a tendency to be very distracted by the next shiny solution or the next shiny thing that's out there. And you end up, everyone just starts racing after the latest technologies, like a arms race, right? But in this case, like adopting latest AI for software, getting all of these things. And then the problem is without that, in my opinion, that careful hesitation from the more conservative folk, you end up overspending sometimes or buying stuff that you don't end up using. So I think there is this tension between, I'm not saying that people shouldn't be digitalizing or digitalizing. In fact, that is definitely the trend, and in order for a company to survive, that's where you need to go. But I'm saying that the speed at which it happens needs to be a careful tension between the conservative and the people who believe in the future, right? So you need both to kind of lead the company carefully. If not, you'll just run off a cliff somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah.
You talk about taking things slowly, but then technology is moving very quickly. So it seems to be at opposing ends of the discussion, right? And one of the main things also is if you're talking about things like TikTok and Facebook and Google now, the algorithms are changing all the time as well. How do you keep up with that? And if you're not up to speed with the whole digital environment, you'd very quickly just get fed up, no?
So the way I look at it is that at least because I deal mainly with enterprise digitalization, right? So I'm not saying that this may also apply for consumer facing, but the idea behind it is there's a difference between upskilling yourself or digitalizing the firm, which is more focused on processes and mindset. These things don't change versus chasing after digital trends, right? And I agree trends come and go. But your understanding of fundamental when you're looking at digitalization or digitizing of processes, of understanding how systems work, having systems thinking, for example, these are things that don't just fade away. So it's okay to take your time, but there must be a willingness and an appreciation for that this is the direction that the team and the company wants to move towards. Yeah.
Okay. One of the things that has come up of late, and I think is causing a lot of concern, are the cyber threats. And as you get into this digital space, big organizations have faced it, banks and whatnot. They've had challenges with cyber threats. How does a small company cope with that if the big companies are already struggling with it?
Well, maybe I'll take a first stab at it,
Anybody,
and then
yeah.
the rest of my panelists can feel free to chime in, because I think SGDCC also has a cybersecurity pillar on it. But there's this saying in the industry, right, that it's not a matter of if, but a matter of when you face your cybersecurity threat. So I think it's about just following best practices, and I think there has been a lot of government grants and support provided towards curating good cybersecurity service providers and also subsidizing some of the upfront cost. But if you go and look at the statistics of a lot of the cybersecurity threats, most of them are not systems based. Most of them, the point of entry or the point of failure is the people. So it's a lot about teaching and educating your team on proper data management policies, proper cybersecurity policies, to reduce the chance of breach, right? But these things keep changing, so it's about staying up to date with it. Like, for example, I think years ago they were telling us, the most secure password must be one that has uppercase, lowercase, symbol, number, etc., right? But actually, a more recent study has shown that actually the length of the password matters more than all these variations. Yeah.
How long should it be?
I think they were like saying if it was like 4 words, so not four alphabets, 4 words. So they were like, if it's 20 something to 30 something characters, it's actually more secure than if it was like a 9-character alphanumeric password, because the number of permutations is more. Yeah.
So length matters on this one.
In this situation, yes. But yeah, I mean, so like big companies will also face their own cybersecurity, and this is where a lot of the cloud services that come up are helpful. Like previously, when I was selling software solutions, one of the questions we always got was, why should I move away from my on-premise solution to the cloud? Because isn't it more unsecure, right? It's more open to hacking. But your on-premise is only more secure if you have the requisite people and manpower to harden your security system. If not, you're just safe by obscurity. People just don't know you exist, not that you are unhackable, right? Yeah. But passing the time over to the rest of my panelists to
Yes.
share on their cybersecurity views.
Kenny, any thoughts on any comments on that, on cybersecurity aspect?
If you ask me, threats like these and scams, phishing has been around for ages, right? The only thing is that because we are very connected through technology today, right? Whether it's using a mobile, whether it's using your internet, everything is connected online, right? Primarily, we have devices everywhere, right? And then of course in that kind of scenario comes to, and I also agree with Rodney that the humans are a very critical component or part of the process that prevent all these fraud and scams, right? And we need to be educated about all these kind of things, yesterday I was talking to a representative that is helping to educate people about cybersecurity threats from People Association, and they are trying very much to educate not just the younger population but the older generation, right? Because they are vulnerable to such kind of information and they are not really protecting their data as much. If you are looking at companies, then I think the first thing is please do up your PDPA compliance. It's mandatory by law, but a lot of companies will still find that, it's not so important. I need to make more money. I need to get more positive cash flow. I need to get some more sales. Then there's nothing wrong with it, but protecting the sensitive data is also critical. Yeah, and cybersecurity is one of the key things that it's important. I'm not talking that smaller companies have spent hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars like a bank. There are solutions cater very much to small enterprise, and it probably costs you about a couple of $100 a year, probably $1,000 a year, right? At least to have a basic protection. Then you scale from there on, get to know more important things on how to protect yourself. Then you slowly move up the ladder, right? I'm not urging companies to spend a big budget on cybersecurity threats while we are scrambling for more revenue and sales. That's not what we wanted to educate and do, right? So yeah, that's my thoughts.
Okay. Let me just address a question that's come through. Kenny, would you like to help this person out?
Okay, I think generally in the chamber point of view, I does not speak for every chamber or every association in Singapore. Primarily, that's my personal thoughts. As a non-profit organization, we try our best is to help to outreach to as many companies. But we need companies to come to us rather than we go to them, because we really do not know where you are, who are you, what are you really doing. Of course, the chamber do have limited resources. We are not 100% funded by the government. Even though if some associations are funded by the government, there's limited resources also to help companies in a Pacific area, right? So I don't really understand well, meaning by how do you not fit in the mold, right? Is it that you're talking about government funding, or you're talking about the solution that you provide is not very appreciated in the market? So maybe you can come talk to us and see what we can do to help you. Let us understand primarily what are the areas that you need help, and then we can move on from there. Yeah.
Okay, so it's about government funding schemes.
There's this thing that I like about government funding, and there are things that I don't really like about government funding. Number one, probably we are very much taken care by the Singapore government, right? And if you look at primarily, every company we goes to and we try to sell our services, and as I mentioned, I'm also a technopreneur, in my own business, right? And the company will ask, and not every vendors are able to be supported for grant, right? And Singapore company has come to a stage whereby it becomes a habit, a behavior that they will always ask. I think sometimes it's a good thing and a bad thing. If you ask me personally, my technology solution does not come with a funding, right? I still sell in Singapore. Primarily, of course, every vendor as a solution provider, we hope that we are an approved vendor in IMDA. Of course, it makes our life a lot more easier in some form, right? But it's not that easy. There are so many tech companies. Not every tech companies can be one. And there's one thing I do not like about funding was the price tends to go up, once becomes an approved vendor, right? In some form, in some areas, not all to all vendors. To some vendor it is, and that is something I feedback to IMDA. And I was saying that are you really helping the SMEs, or are you really want to take a look at how the pricing goes about, right? And which that is critical.
And what did IMDA say?
So you say, yeah, we are looking into it. We are adjusting the the fees as we goes along, and I do see some adjustment in pricing, on the annual basis, which is a good thing. I made a comment a couple of years back, and I hope that they continue to do that. So as long the vendors are making money, a reasonable pricing, the companies are being funded, and as well, of course, to one of to go back to the question about the government schemes. Well, I think you probably have to find ways to talk to the agencies, try to differentiate yourself. I think differentiation is very critical. The government agencies in Singapore are pretty quite straightforward. They have certain mandated rules they have to follow, even though in areas that they want to give companies or vendors to be a pre-approved vendor, right? There are strict rules to follow. So as a vendor, as long as you follow those strict rules, you will stand a chance, right? And of course, to every government, especially Singapore government, we look really like a company or a corporatization, kind of environment. Try to stabilize yourself before you really want to be a so-called PSG vendor or approved vendor, right? Because you cannot help the poor if you're poor, right? And that's important. You need to stabilize your solution. You need to stabilize your services before you should apply to be a vendor, right? Of course, being a vendor really helps,
I think the vendor status is only like one point, right? So ultimately, I think in the market, your solution has to solve a major pain point. I think that is, in marketing, that is the number one thing. Right? People always think that, oh, we just create a product, we create a solution, we create like any kind of service, and like you provide a lot of benefits and people will naturally buy. Actually, the more core issue, right, is the unique selling proposition, and the unique selling proposition needs to solve a pain point. Right, so we come across a lot of companies when they just started out, right? So they start 3 months, they created this product, they're very excited, they want to go out in the market, and they say, hey, Benjamin, can you help me to push this out into the market? Let's go. And I asked them one simple question, which I ask every single client: what's your unique selling proposition? What can you offer to the market? What pain point are you solving, right, beyond everybody else? And if they can answer this question, at least to a certain extent, right? 50%, 70%, 80%. Don't need 100%. I don't need you all together, in this component. Just some answer. You have way more chance of being successful in the market, right? Grant or without grant.
I agree. Totally.
Yeah, you agree, right? Like, you absolutely, right? Like, this is it's a common sense thing for people like us who have been and seen a lot of businesses. And we know that this is a very, very core issue. Yeah.
So if there's no pain, there's no gain, right? That's what you're saying? Yeah, okay. Hey, we are out at the mark. We've got to wrap this up. I just wanted to get from each of you a very quick perspective of what you think the digital tomorrow will look like, both in terms of what the lay of the land will be and the kind of jobs and opportunities that may come up. What should people look out for? Let's start with you, Rodney.
I think focus more on the skills. So like digitization is inevitable, digitalization is inevitable, but don't focus so much on what platforms you need to learn, because like what is trending today, like Canva is trending today, two years later it may not be Canva, it may be some other software, right? Focus more on one like a willingness to learn, and come up with a way in which you can systemize the way that you can learn about a new system or a new way of doing something very quickly. I think that's helpful. Yeah.
Okay. Benjamin?
So mine is really simple. I think that as digitization goes forward, everybody will need to do it in some way, shape, or form. So instead of like just waiting and studying, I mean, go to people like Kenny, go to people like Rodney, right, and figure something out. Figure some small little project that you can start on first. You have to start on something, right? And I can tell you, right, you think that digitization, the cost is going to get cheaper. It's not, because your competition is going to get better, right? So technology costs will definitely be lower, right? You compare the cost of a website today versus 10 years ago, it's dramatically cheaper. But what's the value of a website now? You need a website, plus you need chatbot, you need like marketing, you need 10,000 other things now. It's not so simple anymore, right? So, but if you start early, you start and you try something, right? Just one little thing first, you have a way bigger advantage, because even if you failed in that thing, right? Okay, so first of all, you limit your risk. It's a small thing, right? But you learn what Rodney said, you learn from that mistake and you're able to innovate after that. But those people who try to start 3 years later, I can tell you, your competitors are going to be way ahead of you already. So try not to do that. Start something small, start early. That's better. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Benjamin. Alan, how about yourself?
Yeah, I think for nowadays, the adaptation for the new technology-wise, SMEs will need to actually think ahead of the time, because of the competitive edge that they will be lacking off if, let's say, they are not catching up. So they need to start something or some smaller step in order to actually have a momentum to keep on going, because the momentum have to kickstart somewhere. So basically, that available grants that's further support in the market, we will wish to actually help the enterprise to actually leverage on this particular support from the government, and also with our consultants advisory to actually help them to propagate to the next level. I think that will be important for them to seek help if they're not sure which of the technology, which of the solution to start off with. Then therefore they should seek some help to actually get some support. I think that's a smaller step they need to pick up in order to get this digital transformation to kickstart in the right manner. Yeah.
Okay, so if you don't know, ask for help. Kenny, how about yourself?
I can understand that being human, we are fearful of new things. I started to learn how to use a computer when I was only in NS. And straight after that, I fell in love with computing. I went to learn programming thereafter when I finished my national service. And I think we all need to learn how to embrace, right, challenges. And that's where we are here. We embrace challenges. We became entrepreneurs. We became leaders in our own way, in our own organization, in our society, right? And that's the reason why we are here. I think embracing challenges are critical, right? There are many case studies where digitization and technology has helped. I'm helping one company that's receiving a lot of orders through emails, and hundreds of orders every day. And the people in the organization are reading emails, trying to clear emails on the daily basis. If they can't clear today, if they're on sick leave tomorrow, they have to clear the yesterday email, right? And it's hundreds on the daily basis. So of course, I work with Singapore Poly. We are coming up with a solution using OCR, using RPA, to automate the process, and it's not really expensive, and it can be funded, by Enterprise Singapore, and they help to automate the process. And it can be as traditional as we have clients in like, so for example, in Singapore, companies that they are taking orders. They are manufacturing, food manufacturing company. They are taking orders. They have to call their clients. How many food or supplies you want to take order. There are many SKU. Instead of having a very big call center to call all these customers, we can use talk bots. AI voice bots. Robots to call them. They sound exactly like human. They will take the order from the clients and they automate the process. The reports can be given to the management, for processing of the delivery of the orders. So lesser humans then can be trained to do more other areas of stuff, not repetitive kind of work that do not bring up the value of us, which some technology can do that. Technology are not supposed to replace us as human, but as humans, we are supposed to upgrade. We are supposed to embrace the challenges and upgrade, learn new things, you see, and that's where we can grow as a society. Yeah, so that's my thoughts. Yeah.
Okay, great. Rodney Yap, Benjamin Chong, Alan Chong, and Kenny Tay, thank you for all your thoughts about digitalization. Nice to get human perspectives on digitalization, because I think it's something that's where we're all immersed in, and we have to take this journey. And it's becoming a bit tricky at times, I think, for certain people to try and navigate this space, but it's also an opportunity to learn new things and to be curious and discover more, which I think are human elements and human traits which will be beneficial. Thank you to the audience for the questions, and also look forward to this digital journey taking us into newer and more interesting tomorrow. Thank you very much.